Are you ready to tell the world?
I guess so. Tell me this is a lie. Hey bro, did you sell it?
On this episode of Grassroots Garage, we sit down with Michael Koval, the man behind the angriest Evo in the world, and he's got some news for us.
Welcome to Grassroots Garage. You know this man, this is Michael Koval. Michael, how are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Really well, really well. Thank you for coming on the show.
No problem.
There's a big void behind us now where once there was Koval. Tell us what's happened.
Yeah, after 15 years, I got a phone call one night asking if I'll be willing to let go of the car for a certain amount, and I said give me a few hours and I'll think about it. And then I called him back and said, yeah, why not? Maybe it's time.
So the car's sold.
The car's gone, yeah.
Koval has left the building. So it was just a spur of the moment decision.
Yeah, it wasn't planned at all. Wasn't thinking about selling the car, nothing like that. Just, yeah. I still can't really believe it at the moment. Hasn't hit me yet. I'm sure it would. Yeah.
Yep, we know. We'll give you a minute to let that sink in. Let's reflect on some of the epic Koval moments over the 15 years of racing.
My name is Michael Koval. I drive a Evo 6, makes about 440 kilowatts, runs 10.4 at 143 mile. Car's going pretty good, just got to drive a little bit better, and first run was 10.6 on pretty low boost, so yeah, it's doing alright. You want to see what the real secret is?
Yes.
Right there.
The spider's webs. He's our little mascot today. Hey, little mate.
Just remember, this is not built as no show car. It's meant to go fast, and it does it really well.
So sick.
Went with something that we know works in the sequential stuff.
Well, the intake setup's changed, and we've gone to 2 rails. So we've upped the fuel system from the pump to the lines.
Yep.
The injectors, and obviously extra wiring.
Koval took out roll racing last month against some very serious competition. And that should be an indication of just how quick this car is. And just as a side note, the PPG gearbox is still running the H pattern. Back in April 2017, the oil filter came loose on the first run at Kuta and hurt the bearings. Vince Rigoli pulled it apart on the trailer. There was a crew coming up from Sydney, so they picked up some new bearings. Vince Rigoli had the car back together in a few hours. Next morning, the first pass, it ran a 9.5 at 152, which set the new Evo record at the drag battle. After coming second a couple of times, Michael's first win at roll racing was November 2017. First four-cylinder to take out the event. Here's the 9-second pass from September 2016. 9.9 at 150 miles per hour. This is going to be a very special episode for you today as we sit down with Michael and he gives us all the secrets that went into building this amazing car. That's right, we get tyre pressures, we get boost, we get final power output, cam specs, piston and rods, and concrete blocks. Thanks again to Dom and the TRP team for letting us share the workshop to film this ep. Sit back and enjoy this chat with the legendary Koval.
Where we're sitting right now is where we usually sit down when we meet the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Michael Koval. The car is still hopefully going to be around Sydney. We've just had a chat to the new owner, and he's looking to campaign the car as well. So we're still going to see the car around?
Yeah, he's excited. He wants to continue roll racing it and maybe take it back to the drags and finish off getting a good pass out of the car. So which will be exciting as well to see. It was just good to see the car go to a good person. Like he seemed like he was very, he was excited about the car. He's been following it for a while as well, and it was just a nice, decent person who is into motorsport as well.
He's upgrading from a GTR?
Yeah, I think, he is actually. He needed something faster.
He needed something a bit more reliable, faster, better.
Yeah, he does have a 1200 horsepower 32 GTR as well. But yeah, he did want something faster, so yeah.
And how much he lets us follow him around will remain to be seen, but we'll do our best to keep you guys following the Koval journey. Anyone who campaigns an Evo, you're going to get some information here on a couple of tips and tricks and secrets, some tightly held secrets, even the little things like I'd be walking around the car, I go, what tyre pressures you on, Michael? He'd just sort of go, nah. What pistons you got in a minute? Nah. So where do you want to start? Where are we going to go to start?
What would you like to know the most?
I want to know tyre pressures first.
Tyre pressures.
Like all four the same? What were you doing?
Well, I used to run the fronts at a 22 and the rears at a 18. That was probably more like the 550 to 600, maybe a tad over kilowatt. That was fine. Once we got to a point where we were making well over 650, we had to run about 15-ish or around. Yeah. And if you're running like more than that, it feels dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, the car starts to...
Yeah, definitely just goes everywhere.
Yeah. What boost were you running at the end there?
At the end, the highest, I think we just touched on 70 PSI. Yeah. And the car was definitely a handful with,
Gosh.
It's all done through the ECU. It runs through like a GFB 50mm wastegate, and the boost control is done through a 4-port solenoid. So the 4-port gives you the higher range. So normally, say a wastegate, if I run 20 PSI spring, I normally only can run 40 PSI maximum. Whereas when you're running through a 4-port, you can go above and beyond that target boost of just normally double, which is I think that's kind of, well, it should be the norm these days because it is the way to go. That way it gives you if you did want to go a little bit less boost for your launches or whatever at the drags, you can run it low and then still run the maximum boost up top.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's by the gear as well, is it?
No. When you're running a turbo that big with such a small engine, you're never getting the full boost in your first and second gear anyway.
Got ya.
So it does kind of just stage up naturally. Yeah. So which is good because you don't need 70 PSI in first gear.
Oh man, but it's good to know it's there if you need it, Michael.
Yeah.
And what was the final power figure when you're hitting 70 psi? What power were you running?
The highest at the end, the car did, I don't know, make about 1270.
Oh,
1270. There is more powerful cars out there, but the thing is power to weight.
mm-hmm.
Like it was making 1270 horsepower, and the car was, I've seen it at about 1160 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
So power to weight, it's better than 1-to-1.
Yeah,
So,
you're talking sports bike territory there, aren't you?
Yeah, well, if you look at a 35, right, they're probably about 1800 kilos. You're pretty much going to need 2000 horsepower in a 35
mm-hmm.
to be the same power to weight.
Mm-hmm. Start us at the block and just talk us through some components inside that engine.
Oh, so for starters, the block, you got to have a strong block. All right, so like with mine, we half concrete filled it just to give it that bit more rigidity.
So you're literally talking about concrete?
Concrete, yeah.
You put it inside the block?
We'll put it inside, the water galleries. You'll get it to about half, and it makes the block a lot more rigid. So before I did that, I did have a few times where it did split the ball, and once we've concreted it, never had that issue ever again.
Is this a common thing, or this is like...
It is. I think it's more into the more serious type of things. Like most street cars, or if you just buy a normal daily driven Evo, you're not going to concrete it.
Mm.
But if you are going to run 50, 60, 70 plus pound, you definitely want it. Otherwise you're going to be splitting blocks every outing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's...
So in the early prep, you strip it down and you fill the block with concrete.
Yeah.
That's going to take me a week to get over, but all right, let's keep moving.
Yeah, so normally people buying billet blocks to go lighter, we're putting more weight into it.
More weight into it, yeah. So then you're going to have cooling problems, or?
No, never ever had a cooling issue. I did switch to a electric water pump, which helped big time. So if you're roll racing and you're in the eliminations doing 5-6 runs, you can actually turn the car off and keep the water pump running and cooling the motor. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty cool. We did that, maybe like 2014. I think Vince did that. And yeah, we've had electric water pump ever since. Like since when I did it, I did not know one other Evo that did that, especially like to go roll racing. Like we didn't think of it because you'll sit there in elimination and the thing's just idling and everyone's temps are going up, whereas mine, you can just sit it off and it's cool.
Mm-hmm. Got some props here. Do you want to start looking at props?
We can.
Yes,
we can.
Let's do it, man.
All right, we'll start off with the Pistons. I have been through a few different types. Going from my last 2.3 setup, which was a Manly billet crank and turbo tough rods and Manly pistons, we found that every time you pull it apart and check it, the crank used to have hairline cracks into it. And that happened probably about 3 times. Mm. And it's not cheap. Every time you're buying a crank, it's like, 3-4 grand or whatever it is, and you're replacing it all the time, and it just, we're thinking there has to be something better. And the pistons, when you pull it apart and you have a look underneath the pistons, you were starting to get stress fractures in some places as well. They weren't like exploding or anything, but you weren't going to put it back in with it all, stressed. And ever since I got Dom and TRP to build me a motor, the car has never had a piston stress fracture issue, and we've never cracked the crank.
So how often are you popping it apart and having a look inside?
I try to get it looked at least like once a year. Mm-hmm. That's probably like a good maintenance thing because you want to check it before it breaks. Mm-hmm. Will save you a bit of coin. But yeah, like that crank that we've got in there now, it's heavier than like the lightweight billet one that I used to run, but so much stronger. Mm-hmm. Never had an issue now.
It's not a factory crank. What is it?
It was a Eagle forged. So we're going from a crank that used to cost me 3 to 4 grand to one that costs under 1,500, and amazing. So
guys don't want to run them because they think billet, they think stronger, but actually the Eagle Forge was the go.
The go. Most people will think the most expensive parts will be the best, but in this case, definitely not. Mm-hmm. Definitely not. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Pistons wise, so now we're running it's a CP. Mm-hmm. So we went from the Manly, which were cracking on the insides, whereas these have a lot more meat where the other ones didn't. And these pistons also have the gas ports as well, which give it better sealing.
So can you explain that to me and to anyone who is like me?
I think that is more of a Dom thing. But yeah, apparently you get compression, which puts a bit more, how can I say it? A bit more pressure onto the rings to...
This is like their factory 4G63 piston, or is this like a top end?
Nah, he adds the extra material to where it needs. So it's not a not an off the shelf thing. It's a...
So you've rung him and gone, this is what I want.
Yeah, well that's what he's done. Yeah. That's
right. And disclaimer as well. Dom's happy for us to share all this information. We did ask. Wow. So this is another set he's got for another 4G build?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what we run. This is how we get the thing, the rev, how it does. Bit of oil on there.
That's all right. We don't mind that. All right. So it looks like a rod to me. What am I looking at that's special about this one?
It's a custom aluminium conrod.
Yep.
So the company does sell, aluminium rods for Evos. As again, this one here, after all the R&D that Dom has done, they have strengthened it in different areas for times where they've had failures before, and that's the finished product.
It's a little work of art, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, it looks amazing. So yeah, that's the secret bottom end.
So he's obviously had different breakages in different parts of it, and then added more material to those parts.
Correct. Yeah. So here's an interesting fact for you. The first time I got Dom to build me a motor, the car, what did it make? On Vince's dyno with the EMS, it made about 640 or 6 something kilowatts, or about 650 kilowatts. And then that was a 2.3, and then I got Dom to build the motor, and he built his combo with the 2.2. With the same EMS, it got retuned on the Inside Motorsport dyno, made 600 kilowatts. So it was showing about 50 kilowatts less than what it did previously. But when we raced it, the car went, I think it was like 8 or 9 mile per hour faster. Yeah. So it was, even I was impressed. The way the car drives with this engine combo, it's completely different. It just revs and revs, and for the car to show less, like 100 horsepower nearly less, and go that much quicker and faster, it was insane.
So talk me through so you've got the motor, and then you've got your clutch is a bit of a sneaky little setup as well, isn't it?
Yeah, the clutch I used to run back in the day, it was very hard because no one makes a clutch for an Evo to handle over 400 or 500 kilowatt. So even like when you look at all the Japanese clutches now, they were only rated to like 700 horsepower, and that's most of the time at the flywheel. So at the time, I used what was it called? It was a big body clutch from Queensland. But yeah, we got rid of that, and we put a direct clutch into the car, another twin plate. The advantages was the clutch was probably half the weight, and through what I noticed was in braking and deceleration, the car just stopped so much quicker. It was just very weird because before with a heavy clutch, once you go past the finish line, the car would just want to keep on going. It was getting to a point where it was getting dangerous. Like even though the car wasn't making much power, it wouldn't stop. It wouldn't slow down as well. Once we went this direct clutch, it just changed, and it was just it felt so much safer. Yeah. But it wasn't easy because we tried their twin plates that they sell off the shelf, and it wouldn't handle the power. I think we've changed it probably twice, put it in, went out to a roll racing, start slipping, and then, you know, tell them about it, and they'll fix it or whatever, and try it again. We'll go out, it'll run alright, but you hit the gas and then it'll just start slipping again. And then, yeah, it happened about 2-3 times, and finally Dom said, "Why don't you try this, that?" And then he modified it to his spec, and we've never had an issue. It's been there for probably about 3 years now. Same clutch, yeah.
Let's go to the exhaust. This one, when we were sort of chatting back and forth, and you mentioned you're running a full aluminium exhaust through the car.
I've probably got about that much off the turbo, which is steel.
Yeah.
And the rest is all aluminium.
And I'm thinking brittle. I'm thinking not going to last very long.
No, I've actually had an aluminium catback in the car for, man, I reckon coming close to 8-9 years. It did break once on me. It wasn't the aluminium that actually broke. It was the welds on it. So what I found out was when you're making an aluminium exhaust, the welds have to be chunky. So it actually blew through the welds and then it split at the weld. Whereas now Vince went over it and he thickened up all the welds and never had an issue ever since.
Just throw a bit more material around as you go around.
Yeah.
There you go.
So if you're making aluminium exhaust, make sure the welds are pretty thick.
You're just not going to get this information from... You're talking about between the people you've had working on the car. You're talking about some of the best campaigners in the world on these cars, and you're just dropping knowledge bombs. You know, I'm a little bit excited.
Yeah, it was a lot of R&D. 15 years of R&D actually. So
yeah. The old was it an Eclipse? What was it in? The
Eclipse.
Yeah.
Well, while we were on the motor,
let's.
So head sealing. So everyone knows now it's not that big of a secret. You know, fire rings. Get rid of the head gasket, and we run a fire ring setup, 1/2 inch. Something that's pretty cool. This was probably how many years? Probably about 7-8 years ago now. This is when Vince still had his shop. And one day he was building a GDR motor, and then he had a set of GDR head studs there, and he was like, "Oh, I wonder how different they are to an Evo." And at the time, I think even to today, you can't buy a ARP 625 custom age head stud for an Evo. So most people go to like a L19 or something like that. And then he had these GDR ones there, and the way he tried it in the 4G63 and it fit. So ended up buying a set of GDR head studs, custom age, and running them in the Evo ever since. Like, yeah, something so simple, but unless you don't know.
No,
like,
that's unless you put them next to each other.
Most people won't, be like, "Oh, I'll try a GDR head stud in an Evo."
And you're talking about once you're over sort of, like you're talking 70, but over 30, 40 pound, you start to get that head lift problem. So you do need those head studs to be
you'll see pretty common as well. A lot of the Evos, they start to lift the head and pressurize the cooling system, and just, when you go to roll racing or whatever, and then just look past the Evo in the garage and you see like some of them will have like a pile of coolant coming out of the overflow, which is pretty common for them.
So can you tell us cam setup as well?
Oh yeah, cams just I used to run a Camtech 272 without the cam gears, and it ran fine, no issues. And then I heard a lot of good things about there's a brand called GSC. They do a billet cam, which is called the R2. It's a stroker cam, and amazing. Once you put that in, it completely changed the car. Yeah.
And that's just their cam setup. That's
off the shelf one.
That's
off the shelf.
There you go.
And
Dom's running them in most of his cars?
No, I think mine is the only one because it came with it. Because it's actually a stroker camshaft, which is not even meant to be revved to what we rev the car. So, but it's working and it works.
I love that. So you went up to 2.3 and then you came back down to 2.2. So talk about the difference in the feel between those two.
2.3 is more bottom end torque. Redline used to be about 8.5, whereas now it was so much more, and you just rev it. Like it kind of, I don't know if it less breakages. It's kind of hard because it makes it a lot more power. But if I was to do it all again, definitely 2.2. I wouldn't do 2.3 ever again. Yeah.
There you go. So build yourself a 2.2. You got Carrillo Pistons. You've got these. You're gonna have to ring this company with the rods. I don't reckon they'd sell you a set of the Dom Golden special.
Nah, they wouldn't. But yeah, if you wanted to, you can buy these pistons and rods through Dom at TRP.
I was going to say, maybe just get Dom to build your motor.
Yeah, he can. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. When we started off, Nitrous back in the day with Vince, I think we had that little bolt-on turbo, the GT Pump 762. We used to run like 150 shot. It was nothing too dramatic. Made it like 440 kilowatt. And then went to the bigger Garrett 67mm turbo. That's when we thought, we'll do something different, and we went to direct port. I'll send you a photo of that later. That looked awesome because we've never seen any other Evo do it. So you'll have one nitrous in each runner. It was so aggressive. Like when the car when the nitrous used to come on in any gear, the thing was just wheel spin and torque steer, and it would just try to kill you like every single time. Like it got to a point where you had to think like, man, I'm going to crash this car. Like every time you give it a run, like it's crazy. Yeah. That one was a bit much. That was like nearly a 400 shot. We ended up running on it. What did that make? That was the Garrett turbo. Yeah, I think the highest we got was about 650 kilowatt or something, with that big nitrous in the Garrett turbo. And then towards the end, the nitrous, when we took it to Dom, we turned it down big time. So it was 150, 200 shot. That's the max we're going to run because we do have big turbo. It makes the power. What else? Went from the Garrett to the Precision. So going from the Garrett GTW 67mm, we went to the Precision 76, 75, and man, what a change. Like I've been a Garrett person all my life, and once I tried that Precision turbo, I would never use a Garrett again for that application. Yeah.
Tell me what was different about it?
Well, the thing is how can I say it? Going from a 67mm turbo, we went to a 76mm. That's a massive jump. But driving the car, there was no lag difference. You're making 200, 300, 400 horsepower more, but with the same response. And it was just, I don't know, that Garrett GTW was just really old technology or something, but these precision stuff, if you want to go fast, it's 100% the way to go. A spool mode, you won't even use the nitrous for power. Use it just to bring it on. If you spool it, you'll get power and full from 3,000 RPM. So you got like from 3 to nearly 10.5, 11. So that power band, it's ultimate.
Yeah. And you were saying before, I wish I was filming before, we were chatting to the new owner, we were talking about the tacho in the Evo goes to 8. That's
9. The tacho goes to 9.
And from there, you just
so when you're racing it, the tacho will be here and the needle will be past the 9, and you pretty much just gotta know the car, and you gotta listen to when it's time to shift.
Let's talk about down that drive line. Diff ratios?
Well, diff ratios, I've tried everything from like a 3.9, 4.1 to a 4.3. 4.3, when I first put the PVG in, and you had like 360 to 450 kilowatt. It was awesome. Like it was just so fast, rev nice, and it was just it's good for taking people for joyrides because it was just wheel spin everywhere you go. Like it's just like it wasn't that fast, but it felt fast. But once you made like over 500 kilowatt, that 4.3 was just hopeless, or especially with the stroker anyway. That was when I had to. There's actually a video when I was at the drag battle, and that was when I was with Vince, and we were running like 10 fives, and the thing was hitting rev limiter way before the finish line in fourth. And then he was like, "Oh, just take off in second gear." I was like, "What do you mean second gear?" He goes, "All right." And then so I gave it a try. Took off in second gear, and first run it ran 10.0. So it took off half a second just taking off in second gear.
So you don't need it's not required.
No, like the thing was just, it was that short, and there was enough torque and nitrous there as well to get it on, and it would just blaze the tires in all second gear and take off, and maybe you're saving time from that one shift as well. But yeah, that was a good way to knock off half a second instantly. I think you were there both times. Well, this year and last year, broken the transfer case on. That cost me nearly, close to 10 Gs or whatever it was. And then we went out again. No, the last roll race.
Diff, and
it broke the rear pinion shaft, and it broke the housing, and it smashed the exhaust, and it smashed the metal protective shield around the fuel tank. So lucky that was all still there. But I got. What I get? It's a brand called Brenner Course. I got it through Neat Neat Gearboxes in South Australia. They make like strength and ring and pinion gears. So the transfer case one, we actually went to the bigger output, which is the size of like the later Evos, like Evo 9s and that. That highly recommended. So if you're going to do it, you definitely need to do both. What else? LSDs. I've tried everything from like a helical to one way to 1.5 way in all front and rear. They all behave. They got their own certain aspect of, like a helical is good because it drives like a standard car. But when you jump on power, sometimes you'll go straight. Sometimes you'll notice one wheel will spin a little bit more than the other. It'll pull that way, and the next run it'll pull the other way. And then you go to like a 1.5 front diff, and then the thing will just torques a lot more as well. And it won't, like if you're driving a street car, it won't turn as good. I found towards the end the best was a one-way rear and a one-way front. Amazing. It drove really nice and turned a lot better, and it stayed a lot straighter as well. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Suspension,
yes. See, a lot of people when they build street cars or Evos or whatever, they don't go too much in the suspension. They just think, just power, and it is what it is. So mine, I went through a few different spring rates on the coilovers, which that helped a fair bit. If you watch the earlier videos when I used to launch it, the thing used to bunny hop and then take off. And then if you watch the later ones when we went to the drags, it used to just spin and go nicely. So that was, ended up going, I think the car finished off with like a 4 kilo at the front and a 3 kilo on the rear spring setup, which is awesome, which is really nice. One thing I learnt probably last year, which is pretty amazing, not many people knew. I had a transfer case, even to this day, an M factory LSD, I've never broken one. Whereas, the diffs in Evos is normally a very weak point. So finding a good LSD that is strong, that is definitely a good positive. I once had one with a worn out viscous center diff, and that kind of, it all started from when the car used to, I think it was like 600 kilowatt. It used to wheel spin on the dyno. It will show up on the dyno, it was running 70% rear and like 30% front. And you'll see, you'll always smoke up the rears on the dyno. And then I found out, like that was at Vince's dyno, and then even at Insight's dyno, it was showing the car was always in more rear drive than front. And I found out that the viscous coupling I don't know if the fluid thinned out over the years of the heat or whatever, and it kind of sends the power to the easiest path out, and which was rear. So that's why the car, the way it behaved was so much more different compared to other Evos, because it became more rear drive. Used to just squat and kind of pull itself out. And it was just so funny because you would adjust a few clicks on the shock, and because it's got more rear drive, if it squats a lot, it actually feels like you're lifting the front wheels off the ground. It gets really light, and it can kind of like kick it. So it's pretty cool.
I love that. Wheel alignment?
Wheel alignment, yeah, the wheel alignment was pretty cool. Nothing. A good thing. I reckon it was pretty good value for money. I did. What was the brand? Cusco. It's a Japanese brand. I bought all their bushes, but they were solids. They're all like what do they call them? Pillow ball. So they replaced all the rubber bushes. They're all solid metal, like pillow ball ones. And the good thing about that is when the car accelerates and it squats hard, normally the alignment, you get the flex from the rubber bushings, which changes the alignment. Whereas when we went the metal, you notice the car behaved a lot nicer. And when we aligned it as well, we had a few people hanging off the rear just to have it, try to squat it to its maximum. And we'll kind of try to align it for that. Like most, when you go to get a normal wheel alignment, they'll align it for the car sitting there. Whereas we aligned it with the car pulled down to show
in squat.
In squat, so showing it's on power. So
That you would not many people would think to do that, would they? I love that.
What else? Wiring. I think wiring is a very, very, very important part for these old cars.
I love how we're talking about an Evo as an old car, but continue.
Yeah, I've definitely gone through a few motors just from poor wiring, like dodgy injector wiring, like cost me a few engines.
That'll then lean it out, and you'll.
Yeah, and it's just like out of nowhere, just suddenly, like the car's all perfect, everything, and then just all of a sudden, just that one cylinder would just go funny and destroy itself. Most of it's all new wiring, like all the new, everything that mattered, everything that, could damage or hurt anything was all brand new. So once that was done, it saved a lot of headaches, just going out there and having like crappy issues, just shit issues, like alternators not charging, or the car's running weird voltage and just richening up really much because it's trying to compensate, or but yeah, once you put new wiring in, highly recommended. It saves a lot of headache in the long term.
Definitely. Not adding on to add-ons,
no,
starting fresh and doing it properly. I love that.
So the best thing, or one of the best things for any manual car while going drag racing, is a clutch slipper. Like, ever since before I had it in, I used to blow up transfers and tower shafts all the time, and then put the clutch slipper in. It was easy, made it a breeze to launch at the drags. It was so good. And then I think it was the last drag battle I went to last year, I didn't use it on one run, and I got too excited because the run before was just a practice run on pretty average boost and all that, and it ran I think a 9.0 at 164. So I was like, oh yep, next run it's easy, mid 8 second or whatever. So I took off hard, and I just sidestepped it, silly me, and it just broke everything. Like it broke transfer case, broke a rear diff, and I hurt the motor all in one go, just off that launch. That was pretty devastating.
Not bad.
But yeah, you live and learn. Just take it easy. Like, don't rush. I think that's the main thing. Don't rush it. Do go as everything like how you planned, and just do it properly. And mine will set up that green button on the steering wheel. So when you hold the clutch in, normally when you let it out, it will release at this normal rate. So when you hold the button, you can adjust it to kind of, when you sidestep the clutch, it will just release it slowly. So it will. So normally when you sidestep, it's like bam, everything knocks and then it breaks. Whereas this one, it will ride the clutch for you, and then it will kind of like ride it to a point. And I had it on a button, so once the car gets moving and you know nothing's broken, just release the button and it will just take off out of the hole.
So your clutch would always come out slowly?
No, only when you press the button.
Only when you press the button?
Yeah. Everyone used to think the button.
But then when you pull the button off, then it pops out normally?
That's right, yeah.
So is that a mechanical thing on the pedal? Where is the actual...
No, it's actually, if you look at an engine bay photo, it's welded onto the strut brace, and it goes from it sits in between the clutch slave and the clutch master. So it's just like a adjustable restrictor. And
it's, so you clutch in, hold the button. If you come off the clutch, it's just going to come out slowly because it's restricted, and then you button off, it bangs out.
Yeah, that's right.
That's rad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm learning. We're all learning new things. Well, you guys aren't. I am. I'm learning new things.
I put the little rally brakes on it. They were just, they pretty much look like brakes from a normal, Lancer, like run-of-the-mill Lancer, just so you can fit the 15s on it. When I had the Brembos, I don't know what was wrong with the brakes or whatever. I put race pads in. It worked all right for a while, but when the car got quick, at the end of the straight, when you go to brake, the car will get unsettled. So it will feel like the front is braking too much compared to the rear. So as soon as you step on it, it was like it kind of unsettled. Like it gets hairy. It's not something you really want at the end of the drags or the run or whatever. Then I went the Wheelwoods, which was heaps better than the Brembos, so it was a lot more stable and bigger brakes as well. Then we went to the small RS brakes, which it's a funny one because I think the pads on it, we had Project Mu pads, which worked awesome. It was just so good. And for such a small brake, you'll press it in a lot more. Like you have to press it more, but I don't know, you just kind of feel safer because it's not going to want to lock up and flick the car around. You can kind of tell on I don't know, it just felt smoother. It still stopped, but it was just, I didn't mind it. I was very surprised. The first time we went out, I told Dom, you drive it, make sure the brakes work.
Is that the time I went in it?
I was like, I don't want to really test these small brakes with,
Put Pete in the car, we'll go with you. Sick, look at this! Celebrity driver! What's you're doing here, this job on the...
Yeah, we've got the modes, see there, we've got low, we've got high, and then we've got chop. Right, so what we're going to do is high, we're not going to...
Oh yeah, nice easy first run. Sweet. Had a bit of a moment with that smoke filling the cab. Brand new setup, just a bit of oil and deceleration coming through the turbo. It only happened on this one run.
How'd that feel? Felt nice. Felt fast, man. Got a massive smoke trail.
Small brakes, they work all right. As long as you get good pads, yeah.
So what was the final weight? Did you weigh the car?
Yeah, the lowest I've seen was about 1160. The last time we went out, I think it came to 1190, but my fuel sender was faulty, so the car always had a full tank in it. So it always had more fuel than what was needed. And that was 1190 with a full tank.
And a bag of concrete.
2, wasn't it?
That's it for this episode of Grassroots Garage. I know you've loved all this information from Michael. Make sure you tag your mates in it, comment, and just let Michael know how much we appreciate giving up his time and giving us all this info on the car. And all those times you took us for runs, mate. Really appreciate it. Thanks heaps.
No worries, thank you.
Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next one. Bye.